cent increase to offset the June 1, 2022 5% increase in the cost of water by the City of Chicago. The city may increase rates on June 1 of each year by either 5% or the increase in the CPI, whichever is lower. To offset increases in the cost of water and in capital costs included in the previous slide, rate increases were necessary. Without the rate increases, the village would not satisfy its policy that requires a minimum fund balance of 25%. Moving on. This slide shows the estimated future rate increases. These will be reviewed annually to determine if the targeted fund balances meet the recommended required 25% policy. These projects include increases to account for future projects and cover an estimated 2.45% increase in the cost of water by the City of Chicago. Rates will not be increased until actual amounts are known. These 3-year projections have been prepared assuming the planned rate increases discussed on the previous slide and average water consumption. Cash and investments are expected to decrease in 2024 and increase slightly in fiscal year 2025. Now moving on to the pension funds. The police and fire pension fund policies were amended back in fiscal year 2019, and the contributions included in the fiscal year 2023 budget align with those changes to the policies. The funds have an actuarial analysis prepared each year, and future contributions may be adjusted based on the actual results. The village contributes the actuarial determined or the required statutory minimum, whichever is higher. The fire pension fund investments were consolidated in fiscal year 2022 with all other Illinois fire pension funds. The police pension fund investments are expected to be consolidated sometime this year. Through this consolidation of pension investments, the opportunity exists to materially and dramatically improve long-term portfolio performance. Now on to motor fuel. The motor fuel tax fund is used to fund the street improvements program. $350 for road surfacing, $54,766 for snow and ice control expenditures, $50,000 for crack sealing, and $90,000 for street patching. The Capital Equipment Replacement Fund accounts for future replacements of capital items. The SERF is funded by transfers from the General Fund and the Water and Sewer Fund. Annual transfers from the General Fund will be resumed in fiscal year 2023. As presented in January, SERF projects for fiscal year 2023 include the following building improvements, vehicle and equipment purchases. Oh, you're pretty quick. Wow. Next on to SIF, The Capital Improvement Fund was created in fiscal year 2014 and is funded by automatic traffic control enforcement system revenue, considered non-recurring for budgetary purposes, grants, and the portion of parking lot fees that are to be included in parking fund reserves. It accounts for various capital improvements including computer systems, alleys, commuter parking lots, streetscape, and village hall and public works garage improvements. As presented in January, the SIF projects for the fiscal year 2023 budget include the following projects. Did everybody see those?
No, go back.
Go back. Good. Now looking to the future years of the general fund. As I've mentioned before, the fiscal year 2023 budget includes $533,818 in one-time expenditures in the general fund, including consulting services, payment of the annual liability insurance premium, and salary items. All will be financed using available reserves. The budget is balanced as presented. This slide shows the increase in pension contributions and what it does to the decrease for the general fund property tax levy for all other purposes. Since 2013, this has decreased by $961,000 to $126,000. As we look at expenditures, expenditures in future years, the village will continue to beat industry trends for health insurance premiums and property casualty and workers' comp. We will continue to budget conservatively and strategically draw down on fund balance for non-recurring expenditures in lieu of revenue enhancements. Maintain nominal salary growth to remain competitive as an employer, and evaluate pension contributions. The village is a service organization striving to achieve the goals set by our village president and board of trustees, with over 93% of the general fund budget allocated for salaries and benefits at 72.6% and contractual services of 21.15%. The 2022 property tax levy can include up to a 5% increase or the increase in the consumer price index, whichever is less, as permitted per the property tax extension limitation law, PTEL. The increase in the CPI from December 2020 to December 2021 was 7%. So staff will review current fines and charges for services and take a look specifically at things, parking fees, ambulance fees, and recommend amendments where and when appropriate. As we look to the future, despite the challenges, the village's finances are in strong position. Departments remain focused on critical items and limiting non-essential spending. Shared and state reported revenues are on a 3-month delay, and staff will evaluate other fee and fine charges for future board discussion. The village will continue to aggressively pursue grant funding for eligible village projects. This concludes staff's presentation. The assembly of the budget and the administration of this document is a team effort and involves the hard work of many members of our team, many of whom you see here tonight. Many thanks to each of them for their good work. Now, any questions, I'm sure, and open it up to all of you.
Great. I have a few, but I will let the trustees take the floor if there's any questions or comments. First and foremost. Okay. Katie?
Sure. I have a question for you, Rosie, and you've talked about a lot of big numbers. The question I have is a smaller number relative relatively. You and I traded messages today. I wanted to ask about the money that's come into the village coffers from the aggregation, energy aggregation. And on page 52 of the budget, it says that we should expect 6 monthly payments for this program that are going to go to renewable energy projects. Can you just explain that a little bit more? Like, I thought it was coming in every month. Maybe we're coming to the end of that. I don't know.
So
And how much we're getting every month and what the totality is.
we receive $3,000 a month. So this project or this contract was for 2 years. So in 2021 we received 18,000. In 2022 we'll receive 36,000, and then another 18,000 in 2023. 3,000 a month. It is going directly into the general fund aggregate funds. It's not restricted for any particular use. If there is a request or a initiative from the Sustainability Commission or any other committee that has, that would be brought to the board, and we would show that this money came in from this program that we could use or apply to that. But there isn't any designation or restriction on these funds coming into the general fund.
Okay, I actually thought there was, because it says on the website that the money is going to support sustainability projects.
Right, it does support sustainability projects, but you don't have to specifically carve it out and put it into any particular dedicated fund.
Gotcha. And I think we also spent 10,000 of that on the electric vehicle station.
Right.
Right, and included in this year's budget as well is there's another $25,000 for EV station review.
In fact, along those lines, though, I think Katie's bringing up an interesting point. We carve out and make a detailed on all the boards and commissions of the expenditures. But I would submit to you all, why don't we also have a revenue item, which this could be? So instead of it going to the general fund, it could go into the boards and commission fund and used for boards and commissions.
And I recall recently when the Sustainability Commission made a presentation on one of their projects recently, they asked for an increase in their
Yes, they did.
$5,000.
Right.
And it's a commission that does programming.
No, they do a lot.
Yeah,
And we'll
not
talk
your
about-
typical commission.
We'll talk about that because it seems there's some confusion about the 5,000 and whether it's being used or not. But that's another issue. But I would recommend that we take especially the 18,000 and 36,000 and the 18,000. It seems like a significant amount of revenue that could be allocated to boards and commissions, especially since our boards and commissions went up by a whopping 426%.
Yeah, so again, the board and commission expenditures also come out of that same.
No, I know. So I'm just saying this could be allocated to that as a
And
Revenue
and we
source.
keep track. We have another spreadsheet per se for the revenues that come in for that, and keep track of what expenditures for like the EV station and what we'll use next year. But there isn't a restriction by law.
Yeah.
That's all the
Okay.
clarification.
Gotcha.
Which is good.
And then just to clarify what you're saying, Kathy, are you recommending that the money that's coming in for the energy aggregation be designated for the Sustainability Commission's
or-
recommendations and sustainable projects?
First and foremost, yes. But then secondly, if, we don't look just to spend money, but if there are an overflow, like $36,000 came in 2021, I mean, certainly sustainability could have used some of that money, maybe 10,000, and whatever is left over should go toward the other boards and commissions, possibly. I mean, that's just a thought. It's a revenue source that comes in, and we should identify it as a revenue source.
And it's one of the few things that would get designated as a revenue source. The other commissions,
There is none,
they
right.
don't have revenue sources.
They don't have
so
that. So I'm not
if,
saying-
So if
Yeah.
if it goes to that, and then from whatever's left over, it funds other things. It's a shared
Possible.
pot. But
I-
there's money. At least there's money
would
coming
just-
into it.
I would just say that I think that the residents who, signed up for that were under the impression and were motivated by that money going to sustainable projects, as was advertised.
I'm all in favor of that too.
Well,
I mean, because it's a
to-
self-sustaining expenditure, which I think is even nicer and better versus some other, I mean, which we'll talk about, other boards and commissions that are just expenditures. I mean, they're just taking, not giving. So
So
this
just
is actually giving.
just one clarification on revenues. Revenues, we don't break them out by department or committee, or it's all general fund revenues. We can designate them like we're talking, and that's what we do already, but they're, like I said, we, for all revenues, we combine them in the general fund.
I guess what the group is saying is that we designate them, but unfortunately, the Sustainability Commission and other green initiatives don't see that. So maybe we just make it more visible in the document.
Sure.
May I just, I would like to actually take a step back and say, how do commissions get funded? Having run the Sustainability Commission, I've asked for a budget for a number of years, was told I could never have a budget. So I think we have to take a step back. And I would say every commission should submit a proposal that is put in front of the board and we agree on those budgets. I don't think it should just,
Right.
I mean, that's what I would put on the table anyway.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's a good point, and that's another issue we could discuss.
Right.
I mean, let me just, and I'll get to that point. I think Lisa and Reza, I know you want to. I mean, if I can just say a few words. I think first of all, thank you for balanced budget. There's a lot of real positive things in this budget, Rosie. So thank you to you and Kiki and Brian and Lisa and Elijah and everybody and the chiefs and Beth that made this all possible. You know, it's hard to try to get to this point. So I think our board is very appreciative. So thank you. I mean, if you think about it, you know, our pension, we're increasing our pension payments, which is very good. You know, we're meeting our strategic goals, which are basically customer service, second to none, right? By using information technology, by using customer service, automation, and things that, you know, our residents love. So, and then, you know, police and fire, we're obviously funding them, not, you know, by ensuring that we get fully staffed on police and fire. We're also funding the SURF and the SIP, which I think is so important so that our equipment doesn't break down. So there's a lot of good stuff in this budget, and I want to say thank you for that. There are some things that we can work on that I'll just make note of. That I don't think is a big issue, just something that, and Lisa touched on it a little bit, that maybe can make us a little bit more efficient and more effective, possibly. The one thing we talked about permit fees and how we might look at evaluating upping our permit fees. I think that's probably a wise idea. I mean, versus our fines, because that's kind of a negative thing, versus permit fees are really positive things because people are building and they are, you know, doing great things for their property. So I like that idea of looking at that revenue. I also want to ask about the property tax bills that, as you know, KG just announced that they're going to be late next year by 6 months. What effect, if any, has that on our budget?
We'll receive it within the
It's going to be,
fiscal year.
we will. So you feel comfortable that we'll make up the catch up?
Yeah, even this year, it's the second installment of them that's going to be
Late.
we probably won't receive those until maybe, what did they say, December, but usually, because it won't be a reassessment year the following year, they should get back on track.
Okay. So it doesn't seem like
It doesn't-
You didn't
it
mention it,
shouldn't-
so I figured it must not be a big issue. But
No.
I thought I'd mention it. To address Lisa's issue, and I probably others.
Right.
You know, we talked about a projected deficit, and to me, as I said to Trustee O'Connell, sometimes in government, projected deficits aren't bad because it's revenue always trying to pick up to the expenditures, and if you just always knew what your assessments are going to be and what your property tax bills will be after, you know, board review, that's hard. It's unlike a corporation where you know how much that widget is,
Correct.
and how much you get revenue for that widget. Here, it's a little bit more scientific. Is how much does that widget cost, and how much are we going to get paid for that? So I can understand the projected deficit, but it does bring up an issue, I think, for us to really pay attention on our consulting fees and our contractual services fees. Is that given the projected deficit, and it's not insignificant, I would no, and I think this is where Lisa was going. I would support us now being a little bit more conscious about what we pay in contractual services and maybe specifically in consulting services as it relates to some of our boards and commissions. I mean, we're seeing some revenue, which is great. We could use, but maybe we'd be more conscious about how we spend our money in those buckets. Not that we wouldn't spend it. It just gives us an opportunity to say, oh boy, this really does fit our goals and strategic direction of this village, and therefore this makes sense to pay $50,000 for, let's say, a traffic study, because we all know people cut through our town, and we should be able to, find a ways to, calm the traffic. And if that study helps us calm the traffic, and it costs $50,000, I'm okay with that. I think that makes complete sense. But it's those things that I think we should be looking at a little bit more, simply because of it could, deficits could get out of hand as well.
Correct.
And that's my only. And then the other issue, so boards and commissions, I'd like to look at those expenses before they're actually spent. And then the other one is 911 center. I think that one could be a runaway train. And we really need to spend some time and energy around how we ensure that the cost doesn't get out of control for that 911. I understand why it is now, but that doesn't mean it can't be bigger in the.
Absolutely.
So I completely get where we're at. I just want to make sure that we keep our eye on that. And Brian, you come back with a plan of how we're going to control that cost.
Yeah, so I'll speak to that real quickly. Just so everybody knows, the 911 center that we're part of, it's part of a consortium we're in with Oak Park and Forest Park. There were some other member communities with us at one time. They've joined some other consortiums. The consortium that we are part of and we actually host within our building has been very active looking at what its options are as well. And so we continue to have that conversation to see where we go with that.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to repeat what Brian said, but the bottom line is that we've got a center up here that's been used by 5 communities. Now it's down to 3 communities. So the cost doesn't go away, right? The cost just gets spread more to the 3 communities. And that's why you see a 23% jump. It's not like we're taking more calls. We're just taking on more calls.
So is the overage or whatever's left on the table, is it divided amongst the 3 communities, or we bear the
Pretty
cost
much
of
it.
it?
It's
And
based
you
on
need-
it's based on a call.
Okay.
Yeah, call volume, but you
Okay.
still need the agents, you need the
Well,
backup
right.
agents,
I
you need
mean,
training,
and we all
you
know.
need the space.
We all know. God
Right.
bless the staff. I mean, you walk on the first floor of this place and everybody's jammed in. If there's all sorts
Right.
of extra space, why should our team,
True.
suffer for that?
Yeah. Well, that's a slightly different issue.
I understand.
You're right. Okay.
Yeah. If I can, I think I read this correctly. That the budget that was passed on Saturday morning there's really no impact to municipalities on that budget.
Oh no, there was a whopping 0.1% increase.
Come on now.
in,
Come
I think we might get $10,000 off.
So
Okay.
I don't know. I think it's closer to 4,000. But yeah, there will be some additional revenues coming to us.
We
but
didn't
it's,
get-
We didn't account for them because
so
we
high.
didn't want to be. We didn't want to be too.
Saturday.
Here, I guess
It hasn't been
I
signed
guess
yet
they
either.
would tell you they didn't take anything away.
Right.
Yeah, right, right.
on the positive side.
And then just kind of going on your consulting fee, that was a big item on mine that I marked up.
Yep.
Marked things up. But the other thing is there seemed to be, and I don't know how we do this. I don't want to tell you how to do your job, but there seems to be a lot of research that goes on whether we should or shouldn't do something, and it seems like there should be some type of, maybe there's enough of that work combined with grant writing that we could get a junior member on the team as an analyst / grant writer, because that seems to be an area where there's a lot of that going on in the world, and I see some of it coming across our desk, but I think there's probably a lot more opportunity. And then again, researching what other towns are charging for water. I don't know that we need to be paying a professional consulting company to do that. I think that's probably something that's in the bailiwick of someone internally. So that was my biggie, was that consulting fee thing, because I just happened to go through it at work on some stuff too. So it really is resonating with me. And then just one other thing, and again, not to pick on anybody, but there appear to be a number of residents who who house their cars in this community, but don't, just because they have Wisconsin tags on them, don't feel like they should be paying for their vehicle stickers. And I know it's small potatoes, but any opportunity. I mean, if it's fair for me to to pay for it, why shouldn't it be fair for my neighbor who houses his car in Wisconsin and doesn't pay for it? So just those kind of things are in the small points department, because at some point it's going to come down to where we can increase some of the fees, I think, as we go through the year. When you look at that budget. And I will tell you, the $994,966 deficit that I saw was at 37,000 feet on Wednesday morning, and I couldn't wait to get off the plane to call and say, what the heck's going on here? So, but great job on everything, you guys. Again, a great product.
I'll add to that narrative on the deficit position. In talking with Rosie and Kiki, we tend to lean very conservatively on both revenue and expenditure estimates because of exactly what Kathy was saying earlier, that our being able to pin down those numbers, you do want to be on the more conservative side to make sure that you don't have an oh my goodness moment.
Just to address your grant, I mean, just to tell you some of the budget highlights, there is they provides an increase of $80 million in the Criminal Justice Information Authority, $90 million to fund 3 state police classes, which is not really, doesn't affect us, but $33 million for a law enforcement camera grant. Jim, I don't know if you saw that, and $10 million for a newly created law enforcement officer recruitment retention pilot program. So, I mean, those are probably worth maybe the $33 million might be a little. Maybe we can get $1 off them. Yeah. So I don't know, but that was in the.
And Kathy, Brian, do we have anybody on staff who look for grant opportunities in general for everybody?
Yeah, we don't have
besides
any.
yourself.
Yeah, we don't have any
Okay.
one person that's specifically dedicated to it. Each department does a very good job of looking to see what the options are
Sure.
that they're
Okay.
within their particular group. Jeff as well and I have met with some engineering firms to specifically talk through strategies on when funds become available for the types of roads that we have, and also taking a look at how the structures work on how infrastructure for water and sewer funds are becoming available through the state. It's kind of a unique process that they have in place. So we do have everybody all taking a look at it. That being said, the idea of having somebody who has a responsibility to not only identify but then as well help collect the information needed for applications might be a good idea. I can tell you with regard to the I'll use the DCEO grant dollars just as example. The staff time required to follow through on that does become a little unwieldy, and so sometimes to have somebody who would be dedicated to that would be a smart strategy.
Sure. Could be your management analyst.
Correct. Yeah.
Just to follow up on that too, have you looked into any websites or services that aggregate grants and just pulling from there on a regular basis?
There are some that come through to us. The hard part is that the aggregators like to send you everything and don't really vet it down, so you spend a lot more time actually having to read through it. Where we do get some greater success is actually WCMC and IML. They both have some pretty good resources
IML has
for
a
us.
grant finder.
Yeah.
You can go on the website right now and look at it, and they have all these unbelievable grant opportunities.
resource.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they really do. It's like, I don't even know how they do that, but they do it.
I guess I'd also add that, when we first started the Sustainability Commission, we applied for grants and we were successful in obtaining them. They were just the residents on that commission that took it upon themselves. And so I think we have some commissions, like Age Friendly, that has talent on it, that we don't have to wait for staff to do it. And I know I've sent
That's true.
links to grant opportunities to Sarah for the Sustainability Commission as well. So, we're all interested in these items, and we've got a lot of talented and active residents who
Right.
might be interested in helping out.
I second that. I
And-
think, I think
I
you're
also
right.
think that we have to also be realistic on what we can expect from our residents, because I do know the Sustainability Commission right now is suffering from not having the amount of time
Yeah.
amongst its members that it used to in the past, which I think, again, so
Yeah.
we should always advocate for that, but we also have to be
think it's a
respectful of what
combination,
they
Lisa.
can do.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I think
Exactly.
combination of the two, for sure. Yeah, just so you know that it's at House Bill 3863, Jim. Get some bucks over there. I hope it's worth it.
Come to the local level and then grabbed up
By the
some of
sheriff.
larger agencies or those that are in certain
That's what we-
designated districts. So we
Dial
are
for
ready to
dollars.
take a look at it.
Diving for dollars.
And the one thing I would also add with with grants, it's not only finding the grants and submitting to the grants. I also think it's following through with the requirements of those grants and reporting back.
Yeah. No,
So it is a full circle. Just
So-
because you have the money doesn't mean your work ends.
Right.
So just to kind of close that loop. Thanks.
agreed. Rez, you really
No,
looking
the other
right
thing
in
I was
there?
going to add is that, at least when it comes to board and commissions, I was going to agree with Trustee Gillis about, I think in the past, this board made a decision not to automatically fund, because there was a request or suggestion that we automatically fund each commission and board. And I think we all voted not to do that, meaning automatically. Going back to what Trustee Gillis indicated, that maybe it's a submission to this board to make the determination whether that particular project should be funded for the request. I mean, I know for our Age Friendly, I didn't even know we had $10,000, but I was planning to come to this board if I needed to fund on the Age Friendly survey. But it turned out that our committee was able to really focus in and do the work, and actually we were able to put that survey together without using a consultant. So
Good.
we have 10,000 that can go back to whoever, even though I didn't know we had it. So
Your neighbor.
yeah, my neighbor. Okay, but I'm just saying that, so I'm in agreement with that.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I just think it's a
yeah.
healthy way to do it, then we
Yeah.
can, just make sure that everyone gets the right number, for sure. Okay. Any other comments for Rosie and Kiki and the team?
I just have one small question. Actually, two. On page 98, we list as part of, let's see, part of like what we get in fees
Yep.
is invoicing. And I'm wondering, how do we invoice people? And actually it's 98.
Of course, my computer is not pulling up the
98.
page. Here, the page. Thank you.
I'm just curious. I'm like, I wonder who we invoice.
So is
You
that
know, and so it says
water?
that in 2022 we submitted 142 invoices. So I wasn't
water?
sure. Is that like
No.
is that charges for ambulance?
I'm going to guess that's more ambulance related charges.
No, it's more like fuel and gas every month from the President
Oh,
School
yeah.
District.
Oh,
A couple of retirees, their insurance premiums.
Oh.
We pay for those and then we invoice them for those.
Okay.
Oh.
And
So
then
it's-
any other miscellaneous invoicing that comes up.
Okay.
Yeah, it's miscellaneous. I mean, it's.
I was
it's-
just like, what
we,
would we?
whatever accounts
great question.
receivable we have, it could be.
A law office charged us, or we got charged $25 for getting some papers or whatever. We'll invoice them for that. It's all sorts of
Okay.
different miscellaneous things.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Yeah, thank you for the clarification. I was just wondering what that was. And because it's in the budget, page 120, I'm wondering, Chief O'Shea, it lists that we have calls that are high priority. And I wasn't sure could you just describe what high priority calls for 911 would be, or if there's someone better to we've got in our regular packets like group A type of calls or violations, group B Do you have a sense of what high priority calls would be?
Yes.
There are numerous ones that fall under specific codes within the dispatch center. But when you look at what's considered those type A offenses that you see in the report, those would be considered high priority calls. Also, high priority calls are in progress calls. They might not be criminal events, but they may be service calls that are in progress at the time. They also are going to include accidents with injuries, or anything where an immediate response is required by an officer. And once again, we can get you a full list of what the dispatch says under their code system if you would like. That could be shared with the board. But that would be sort of the general sort of list off the top of my head.
Okay, thank you. And I appreciate that we are under 4 minutes, it looks like, for quarters 1 through 3 in getting a response time to those. So thank you for that. And I also just want to commend putting in the goals and the objectives. It was very nice to see all the great work that the village had done in the past year by each department and see very clearly what the goals and objectives are for the next year. So thank you for that.
Yeah, perfect. I like seeing 0 claims too. That's a nice one. 0 claims. All right, very good. So any other questions or comments for Brian or the team? Hearing none, then I will close the committee of the whole meeting. So I'll just ask for an adjournment in a second.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, very good. But,
Do we have
John,
a minute?
Yeah, no, John will just say
Oh, yes.
your name.
Trustee Gillis,
Yes.
Trustee Vasquez,
Yes.
Trustee Brennan,
Yes.
Trustee Johnson,
Yes.
Trustee O'Connell,
Yes.
Trustee Bachner.
Yes.
Meeting adjourned.
All right. Yeah, we'll take 5 minutes and then we'll come back.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. So then we hold this public hearing.